All right. So, hello, welcome to your restorative practice. Um, Little disclaimer about today's practice will probably be closer to a yin-like experience in your body because of the shapes we're going to create. We're going to focus on two main shapes today. One will be a low lunge, or in yin yoga called dragon pose, where you're just bringing one foot forward and extending the opposite leg back. And then the second shape will be half saddle, where we'll focus on lengthening that hip flexor that we were just extending back. And so these shapes tend to be more sensational in most people's bodies. That may or may not be true for you today. It's okay either way. I just want to give you that disclaimer because typically we approach our restorative practice as completely passive, not looking for a whole lot of sensation, and just letting the body rest and relax. We are practicing rest and relaxation today, but there might be a little bit more sensation in the body, in those specific body parts of the hip flexor, the quadricep, things like that. To prepare the body for those longer holds, we will do a few things that will be shorter holds, and then we'll get into our longer holds. Before we do anything, probably grab a chair or a stool if you have it. So I have my pink little stool here that I can use if I want that. You can also have wall space, and then blankets and pillows and your variety of props that you typically have for your restorative practice. All of those are welcome. And so to start off, to warm up the ankles and the toes themselves, because they are part of these shapes, we will take Virasana, hero's pose. And it's sometimes helpful to place something underneath the sits bones between the ankles. You can fold up pillows, you can fold up a stack of blankets, get as much height as you need underneath your sits bones so that you can let your feet relax behind you. So you're on the tops of your feet and the toes are pointing straight back behind you. And so this might look different in your body depending on your ability to flex and extend your ankle joint. And so if the ankle joint's kind of like looking more like this, or if it looks like it's externally rotated, then what I would suggest is folding or rolling up a blanket, placing it underneath the tops of the feet where your ankle joint is, so that your ankle joint doesn't have to get completely flat. And try sitting back there like that. Okay, so take a few moments to get into your position, into your own version of this shape. And then see if you can start to settle in and find some stillness, rooting down to whatever you're sitting on. Breathing in, growing tall. And if it feels comfortable to you today, you could close your eyes. We'll just start to bring our awareness to our breath. Notice how the breath moves through the body. And let's take about 3 more breaths here. Just finding stillness, allowing yourself to intentionally come to the beginning of your practice. If you like, you can blink the eyes open. You can also continue your practice with the eyes closed and just listening. The next thing we'll do just briefly is continue this idea of extension or flattening out through the ankle. And to do that, you can either work with where you are right now, because sometimes that's totally enough. If the ankles are pretty flat, the tops of the feet are pretty flat on the mat, and you want to increase that sensation, you can walk your fingertips back behind your feet. So a little bit more weight goes into the legs, the shins. And you might start to feel this across the quadriceps and the front body. And then you can stop wherever you start to feel a lot of sensation, or like 50% of what you would consider your maximum capacity. And then if you want more, you can lift the hips up off your seat. And then one more addition. So these are just options along the way. Feel free to stop wherever you like. Would be to remove whatever you're sitting on, hands back behind you just like you were before, pressing into the tops of the feet and lifting the knees. So now I'm really stretching the tops of my feet and my ankles. And if you're not getting here today, no big deal. It really doesn't matter. What's more important is that you meet your body where it is today. Wherever you are, relax out of that, come forward, hands forward of the knees, and then tuck your toes under. So we'll kind of do the reverse of what we've just done. Tucking your toes under, hands in front of your knees like you're going to come forward into tabletop with your toes tucked. And either choose to stay here, or if you want, you can walk your fingertips back towards your knees. You can shift the weight back towards your heels and sit on top of your heels. Right? So if that's too intense, just remember, bring your hands forward, more body weight into the hands. You can kind of play with that balance between what's enough, what's too much. And wherever you are, whether weight's in the hands or all the weight's back in the heels, let's take 3 breaths. If you're seated back on your heels, bring your hands forward and uncurl your toes, and then just go ahead and tap out the tops of the feet. Okay, so that mobilization of the ankle and the foot will come in handy later when we move back into half saddle or supine hero's pose. You can call them whichever one you like. But first, we're going to come forward into dragon or our low lunge. So this is where maybe having that stool at the top of your mat is helpful, because you could bring a shelf up underneath the chest and the hands and the forearms. So choosing a foot to bring forward, I'm going to bring my left foot forward. You can always pad that right knee or whichever leg is going to be back with a blanket, because we'll be here for a little bit longer. So in longer holds, we definitely want to use support so that we can find stillness in the shape. I'm going to take my left foot wide, so it's to the outer edge of my yoga mat, and then tucking your back toes under, lift your back knee, kind of wiggle that foot back in space until you start to feel the top of that right thigh stretch. Just a little bit, not a lot. And then set the foot back down, set the knee back down. You can keep those back toes tucked, or you can come to the top of the foot, really your choice. So starting out shallow, maybe you're up on your hands, and then you can build some props underneath you. Again, you could grab your chair here, and you can rest your forearms on your chair or your stool, or any other props that you have around you. So bring height up to you instead of forcing your body down towards the floor. We're going to be here for about 3 minutes. And so you have a lot of time to settle in. That's a lot of time. And if you need to come out sooner than 3 minutes, just listening to your body, honoring what it's asking of you. If you do decide to come out sooner, you can always take a child's pose, or you could just lay down on your back in a little Savasana. What I would suggest in shapes like these, where we're holding for a long time and where there's a lot of sensation, that you start shallow. You don't force yourself into some sort of like, oh, I should be able to get my chest all the way down to the floor. Back out and start shallow. Let the body itself, not your mind, but the body itself, let you go deeper. Which means that might not happen today, and that's okay. And just being mindful of any tension that you're holding in your shoulders, your neck, the muscles of your face, your jaw in particular. Can you soften those muscles? About halfway through, so if you're craving a little bit more depth, feel free to go lower. And if you are realizing I am way too deep into this pose, I need to back out, just honoring that deep knowing. Let's take one more breath here if you're still in it. If you're down on your forearms, nice and slow, come back up to your hands. And then start to back your hips up over that back knee and maybe take half split. So you can lengthen out through that front leg, take a half split. And then maybe you come to tabletop. Maybe a few rounds of cat-cow. If you did come to tabletop, the same foot that you just brought forward, bring it forward again. Okay, so you're in essence in the same shape of that low lunge with the same leg forward. And stick with this side. So my left leg is forward, my right knee is down on the mat. And I'm going to start to shift my weight back towards my right heel. And again, this is where that ankle mobilization at the beginning of our practice comes in, because I can now, with relative ease, get the top of my foot flat and my toes pointing straight back behind me. Now, that may or may not be true for you, and either way, it's okay. What I want you to do, if your ankle cannot withstand this level of depth, bring things underneath your sits bones. Okay, so again, that stack of blankets, props, whatever you've got, slide those underneath your sits bones so that your ankle and your foot can relax first. That's the first step to this shape. The leg that's forward, it can stay stretched out, that knee can bend and the foot can plant. It's really up to you. And then what comes next is going to depend on your own particular anatomy and body. You can stay in this seated position, and your knee joint and your hip joint and your ankle joint are going to dictate that for you. If all of this is feeling good and fairly open and easeful, then you can start to lean back. So a wall, you can lean back into the wall behind you. You could bring that chair behind you and rest your forearms on that chair or stool. Some folks will have the capacity in their body I like to make a little ramp, so I'm like just sliding a little cushion behind me for my spine. My sits bones are still on the mat and leaning back on this little, kind of like a recliner. So again, we'll spend about 3 minutes in this shape. If you're forcing yourself onto your back and your knee is complaining a lot, or any of your joints, such as your hip, your ankle, or your knee, like a sharp shooting pain, your body's asking you to give it more support. So back out, add more height underneath your sits bones. Don't lay back as far, or add more props underneath your spine. Eventually, see if you can start to settle into stillness. There's always that invitation to close the eyes if it feels good. Okay, so we're about halfway through this particular shape, and just checking in with yourself. Notice how you feel. Notice where you're feeling sensation. What kind of quality does that sensation have? Like, what adjective would you use to describe it? Let's take 3 more deep breaths in your current shape. If you're all the way down on your back, just take your time with your exit. So you might come up onto the elbows, lifting the chest. And then I like to roll onto the leg that I have free, that hip, and then lengthen my opposite leg forward, the one I was just really deeply bending in through the knee. And then just kind of rub that knee joint out and just bring some circulation, blood flow back into that whole leg. And we'll do that little sequence on our second side. So if you were following along with me, that means this time we're bringing our right foot forward into dragon or low lunge. Maybe we're going to pad our left knee. Maybe we're going to use props underneath our hands, our forearms. So build your support system for your body. Okay, so right foot forward if you're coming along with me, and if you need to do the opposite side, totally fine. As you start to come into this lunge, tuck your back toes under, lift your left knee, wiggle that foot back until you start to feel that left hip flexor and quadricep stretch a little bit. And then maybe you slide some support underneath the left knee. And just kind of taking this really slow, being nice and gentle and listening to your body. You can always stay up on your hands, but if you do want to come a little bit more onto your forearms, please feel free to use props underneath the arms in any way. Again, about 3 minutes here. And I'll let you know when we're about halfway if you want to change anything. And just doing your best to find stillness, to follow the breath. Continually checking in with things like shoulders, neck, throat, the jaw. Can you keep those as relaxed as possible? We're about halfway through this hold. So if you want to make any changes, add props, remove props, change your level of depth. You have just a little over a minute here. Let's take about 3 more breaths in our current shape. If you're down on your forearms, take it nice and slow, come back to the hands. And then when you're ready, if you want, you can lengthen out through that front leg. You can move the front leg back into tabletop and go through a few rounds of cat-cow. And the same leg that you just had forward, it's going to come back to the top of your mat. So again, I have my right foot forward, and I'm going to start to shift weight back towards my left heel, the inner edge of my left heel. And I'm not trying to sit on the heel, I'm actually trying to sit inside of the ankle. So both of my sits bones are on the mat as I shift back. I'll take a peek at my left foot, see that the ankle is flat, the top of the foot is flat, and my toes are able to point straight back behind me. They're not moving out to the side or sickling in underneath my sits bones. And then based on what that foot and ankle is doing, I might add support underneath my sits bones so that my ankle and my foot can get flat first before I think about doing anything else. Once I've got a good thing going on, my foot and my ankle feel good, check in with the knee. Knee's feeling okay. Check in with the hip flexor. That's feeling okay. Then all that's good. I might decide to kind of just come to this supported reclined position. Any layer of height, you know, you can add as many pillows as you want behind you. You can also just, again, slide that chair behind you. You can rest your forearms on it. You could do this up against the edge of a couch or a bed. So there's no mandate anywhere that says, oh, you have to get all the way down to the floor without props. No, you bring the floor up to meet you where you are. About 3 minutes here. And the leg that's we're not really working on right now, the one we just worked, for me, that's my right leg. That leg can be stretched out or the knee can be bent. You could try both and see which one you like best. If you like, you can close your eyes. Eventually, once you got that right support system in place, maybe you find stillness. Maybe the eyes close. Maybe the breath gets a little bit slower. About halfway through, honoring your body. If you need to back out a little bit, it's totally fine. Your body's asking you to go deeper. Also, that's welcome. And we'll take about 3 more breaths in our shape. And then remember, really slow, gentle exits. And then whatever leg you have extended forward, the foot that's free, that's the hip you want to roll the weight towards to let your opposite leg lengthen out. And just take a few moments to kind of bring that blood flow and circulation back into the knee. I like to rub my hands over the knee because that does increase blood flow to the joint itself. Blood flow is so instrumental in healing. All right, I'll set up for our final Savasana. You are more than welcome to take that however it works best for you and your body. I'm going to take my legs up the wall today. We'll spend about a minute, as usual, in our Shavasana. So once we get into shape, I'll set us our timer. That invitation to close the eyes as you roll the shoulders underneath the back and slightly tilt the chin in towards the chest. Taking a deep breath in through the nose. Open your mouth, exhale the air out. And with that full, complete exhalation, feel your whole front body soften into your whole back body. Let it go, let it rest. Shavasana. So if you have more time to spare in your day, please feel free to stay in Savasana as long as you like. If you need to move on with your day, start to awaken the fingertips, the toes. Maybe you move your head side to side. When you're ready, rolling off to fetal position. And from fetal position, pressing into the hands. And we'll just take a few moments to close out our practice in an upright, comfortable seat. If you liked beginning your practice in Virasana, that hero's pose, you could take it. Roll the shoulders back over the hips, ears over the shoulders. Inhale, grow tall through the spine. Exhale, settle into your seat. Deepest, fullest breath in as you're ready. Pausing at the top of that inhale. Take one more sip of air in. And exhale all the air out. We'll take 2 more rounds of breath in this way. Inhaling as you're ready to your maximum capacity. Pausing when you're full of air. And sipping just one more little bit of air in. And exhale, let it go. One more breath round like this, inhaling fully, deeply. Pause. Sipping more air in. Exhale, let it go. And then let go of any breath retention or breath control. Just let it return to neutral. And an invitation to join the hands together at the heart and bow the chin into the chest. In reverence and gratitude to our practice and our effort. May you remember that you will always be okay. May you find a light that guides you and keeps you safe. May you have hope, help, and happiness along the way. Namaste, yogis. All right, everyone, thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed your practice. I hope you're feeling good. Take care of yourselves, and I hope to have you back again soon.